welcome to my front room in Perthshire. So as alluded to on the last video, unfortunately I'm not able to go out detecting for probably much of January, if not into February, so it's a good opportunity to go through some of my best finds in 2021. This little box, or this huge box in front of us, represents probably about 4 or 5 months of detecting finds. Basically, I empty my finds pouch out into this box every time I come home, and in actual fact there's a box within a box, because this black box was the initial beginning and then it started to burst because it had about 10 or 15 kilos of weight in it, and I started to put the rest into this huge box. I'm going to guess and say it probably weighs about 15 to 20 kilos, and there's a combination of junk and also some good finds in here. In actual fact, there's a few things that have caught my eye that I wondered where they had ended up. So I'll take you through this box. We'll look at some of the items that we've found, or that I found certainly in the last 12 months. And we'll also have a look at one of my best finds, in fact the best find, not only of 2021, but probably my best find that I've ever made, which is my first ever gold hammered coin, which I found in September at Detectival, which was held in the south of England. So it's a quarter gold noble. And as I said, it's the first ever gold hammered coin that I've found. It took me 22 years to find my first hammered gold coin, so I think that's what you call dedication. So before we actually talk about the coin and have a look at it, let's have a look at how it was found. So someone else has very kindly had a dig here and left their tin can. But there is something else. Probably another bit of tin can, but let's see. Oh, so this might well be the moment where the worst weekend of metal detecting that I've had in a long time becomes a pretty good weekend. Well, maybe. Because I think whoever's dug this tin can up has missed something, because I didn't even need to dig. This here is where it is, and look at that. I can't believe it, I think that's gold. I'm actually shaking. I think that's a gold coin. Oh, this better be. Oh my god, see if this is a ring pull. I think it is. Or is it? I don't know. Right, we're going to need to crack this open one-handed. Moment of truth. Oh, I don't believe it. Oh, oh my god. Ah, oh, my god. That's a gold hammered coin. Right. I can't believe it. My god, I've dug almost nothing today but rubbish. Oh, look at that. I can see something. I can see a lion. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I've never found a gold hammered coin. I found my first gold coin, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, 6 months ago. It was a sovereign, a half sovereign from 1914. And that is older than 1914. Right, I'm going to have to give this a careful removal in case it's cracked or broken, so I'll get back to you. It is a solid gold medieval coin. You can see the imprint. I don't think it's cracked.
I think it's whole. I don't know about under that soil. I'm going to have to get my water bottle out and give it a clean. But that is a gold medieval coin. Oh, I don't believe it. That's incredible. Still been a terrible weekend of metal detecting. The finds have been non-existent, but that is a gold hammered coin. I do not believe it. I'm not even going to do anything with it. I'm going to just take it to the finds tent. I'll have a scout around and see what we get, if there's anything else, and I'm going to go to the finds tent and see what they say. I had to go for a bit of a lie down. It's all been a bit too much. First ever gold hammered coin. After a weekend sleeping in a tiny tent, finding absolutely nothing really. Oh, what a feeling. Amazing.
And here is the coin. So I recorded the coin with the Portable Antiquities scheme, who were on site at Detectival. They were incredibly helpful. They had an attempt to identify the coin, and they attributed it to Richard II, who ruled from 1377 until 1399, and it is a quarter gold noble, a quarter of a noble. Now, I've since been told by a few people, and in fact even one person at Detectival suggested that it might have been wrongly attributed. It might actually be from the previous king, and that is Edward III. Edward III ruled from 1327 until 1377. And the issue is their coins are absolutely identical. The only thing that changes is the name on the coin. And the worry is, or the problem is with this coin, is the name would have been up in this top right hand area up here. And all that you can make out that's left, because the coin's been clipped, which means it's been trimmed, is the letter R and the letter D. And the issue is that Richard and Edward, both names end with an R and a D. Now, the other problem is it looks as if there's the very bottom of a letter A just here, A-R-D. And the other issue yet again is Richard and Edward both end in A, R and D. Now what we can make out is the words D-E-I, which is D, and Gratia, so de Gratia, so that means by the grace of God. And it would have then probably said A-N-G for England and F-R-A for France. So it would have said either Edward, by the grace of God, King of England and France, or it would have said Richard, by the grace of God, King of England and France. So if anyone thinks they know for sure, I'd be delighted to know. The shield, which is quartered in the centre, you can see top right and bottom left, 3 lions of England, and bottom right and top left, the fleur-de-lis, the flowers of the lily of France. And that's because the kings of England and the queens of England, they claimed, as they were part of the Plantagenet, or from the time. So in the centre we've got the crossed shield, which has got 4 quarters. Top right and bottom left you've got the 3 lions of England, and bottom right and top left we've got the fleur-de-lis, the flower of the lily of France. And that's because the kings and queens of England claimed a right to be the kings or queens of France, which dates all the way back to the time of, I think it was Edward III. In the 1340s, his uncle Charles, I think it was Charles IV, was the King of France, and when he died, Edward felt that he should be the next King of France, but he was denied, and they maintained their right to be the King or Queen of France all the way through to the 1800s, when the French Revolution happened and France became a republic. And that's all because Edward was part of the House of the Plantagenets, and they were originally from Anjou, which is in the north of France. Now, on the other side, you've got some beautiful decoration. I think this is the reverse, or the tails side of the coin, but I think it's actually the prettiest because it's very well struck. And you can see at the very top, you can see the little lions and the scroll figures. You'll recognise some of the detail actually from Martin's gold noble that he found a few months back. Although it's folded, you can still make out a similar pattern and similar design. But once that is unfolded, hopefully that coin will look even better than this one. Again, around the edge it's been clipped. You can see where pieces are missing, but it's also very smooth on this outside edge. But what you can make of the lettering, it would have said Exaltibur in Gloria, which comes from a saying from the Bible, he shall be exalted in glory. It's an absolutely beautiful coin. And as I say, I often wonder if the person who dug it up and dismissed it as a tin can, whether or not they ever saw the video, and whether they rue the day that they left behind something in the field. It's a beautiful coin, as I say. If it's Richard II or if it's Edward III, I really don't care, but apparently it makes a big difference financially. I think in round figures this coin, if it's Edward III, could be worth around £1,000, maybe a little more, maybe a little less if it's a bad day. But if it's Richard II apparently is a much rarer gold coin, and could be worth £2,000 or £2,500, maybe even a little bit more if it turned out to be a Richard II. But I'm not going to sell it anyway because it's my first ever gold hammered coin, so it's an absolute beauty. And here we are, back to the box, which I was going to start to try and tidy out this week, and I'm already looking at it thinking, I don't have the time or the energy. But let's take a little bit of a closer look inside, and as you'll see, there are literally all sorts of things here. There's a nice, probably a medieval or a Roman lead steelyard weight. There's all sorts of stuff. There's a nice big George V, by the grace of God, King of the Britons, and it's a silver half crown from 1923, and as you can see, it's literally littered with coins. George VI, halfpenny. There is another lead steelyard weight. This little glass bottle, which I found because of the metal stopper still being on it. So that's rattled about in a ploughed field for probably over 100 years and survived. All different types of pieces of cutlery and bits of glass. There's that's a nice boss, a nice decorative boss that was probably attached to a working horse, to a saddle, or to part of the bridle. Beautiful decoration. It's still got the original little stud with leather on the back, and that's how it would have been attached. So we'll pick out one or two of the nicer bits and pieces. This one I just spotted. I'd wonder where this one had gone. This is a silver coin from 1723, and it is of George II. So George II, by the grace of God, King of the Britons, France and Hibernia, or Ireland. So George II was on the throne when the Jacobite risings of Bonnie Prince Charlie took place. And it was his son, the Duke of Cumberland, who led the British government troops against Bonnie Prince Charlie and his Jacobite army at the Battle of Culloden in 1746, which ended in a complete annihilation of the Jacobite army. It's a very nice coin. And on the reverse you can see the various houses. You've got the harp at the bottom of Ireland, the fleur-de-lis of France, you've got the split crown of the three lions of England on one side and the rampant lion of Scotland on the other. And then lastly you've got this one here, which is, they were also electors of Hanover, which was a sort of independent autonomous region within the Holy Roman Empire. It's a beautiful coin. So it's always good to have a wee bit of a route around, and right here is a coin that I've been looking for a while. It's almost like I'm metal detecting again. Now this is a silver hammered coin, and that is Queen Elizabeth I of England. So she was the illegitimate daughter of Henry VIII, and she was never Queen of Scotland, but this was found in Scotland. It would have passed for regular currency because at the end of the day it's made of silver. And on the reverse you can see the shield, and the date is 1576. So this is a period when Mary, Queen of Scots, who was the Queen of Scotland, she had been forced to abdicate in 1566 so that her Protestant son, who was just a baby, James VI, could become King of Scotland. Mary was forced to abdicate. She was a practicing Roman Catholic and she fled to England. And in 1567 she sought sanctuary from her cousin, who's here, Elizabeth I of England. And Elizabeth promptly had her detained. She spent the next 20 years of her life incarcerated in England until eventually Elizabeth I signed her execution papers, and Mary, Queen of Scots, was executed at Fotheringham or Fotheringay Castle. And she had the last laugh though, because Elizabeth died without children. And James VI of Scotland in 1603 became James I of England. And for the first time, Scotland and England had a shared monarch. Beautiful coin. I'll put that somewhere safer. And here are three nice eyes-only finds, which are all clay pipes. They're probably all Victorian in date, so they're probably all from like the 1840s through to the early 1900s. This one here has got a steam train or a steam engine on one side, and on the other side you've got this beautiful ship with a big paddle wheel steamer. Obviously at the time these were considered to be great inventions, so clearly they were popular to be appearing on smokers' pipes. And this one here is a fairly recent find, just a month or so ago, and this is covered in Masonic imagery on both sides, so clearly someone who was a member of the Masonic Lodge with the all-seeing eye at the very top there. And then lastly, this one here, which has got a very clear Irish element. So you've got the three-leafed clover, or is that a shamrock? I can never remember. And on this side, you've got the harp of Ireland. So these would have probably been owned by field workers or navvies, who were basically Irish labourers who were brought over to the UK to help with engineering projects like building bridges and building roads and so on. And the clay pipes only had a certain lifespan before they were just tossed away, either because they were broken or because they were just beyond use. So nice pieces of social history, and always worth keeping your eye out when you're walking across a ploughed field, because you never know. So I had a quick route around for all of 2 minutes just to see if any particular coins caught my eye, and it's absolutely littered full of silver coins. This is without doubt probably going to be the oldest, because this is a cut halfpenny. They're very rare. I think I've only maybe had 3 in my entire metal detecting career, so almost as rare as gold coins, of which I've only had 2 in 22 years. And this is a cut half. This is an English penny, and you can just make out the letters REX for Rex. And on the other side you can make out 3 pellets and part of the cross. So this is basically, at the time, they didn't make a coin denomination smaller than 1 penny. So if you were buying something like a loaf of bread or a pint of beer that was only worth a quarter or an eighth or a half a penny, you would simply cut the coin up. And that's part of the reason why the cross was there, to help you to properly cut it into pieces. Now this is quite, well, it's one of 3 kings. It's either going to be John, Richard or Henry, because the short cross penny was only in use for, I think it was 1180 till around about 1250. So this coin dates sometime between 1180 and 1250, and it's either going to be John, Richard or Henry. And then we've got some fairly modern coins. This is George V, probably the most common king or monarch that we find in the fields. And this is a silver sixpence, 1927. And then looks like we've got another George V. It'll be a threepence, and it is a 3 pence, 1917. So during the First World War, another what looks like a threepence. And again, it is, what's a little bit later, 1922. And then this is not a silver coin, but it caught my eye because it's an old Scottish coin. You can just make out a thistle on the back there, and the words Nemo, me, impune lacessit, which means who dare meddle with me. So this is an old Scottish coin of King Charles II, so it dates to sometime between about 1649 and 1685. You can see the letters Carolus, which is Charles in Latin, and then the C and the R for Charles Rex, and then you've got 2 little lines here, which is 1-1, which is Charles II. Struggling to focus that. There we go. Charles II. So that's a Turner or a 2 pence piece. And then we've got just a huge handful. I don't know how that ended up in there, but it's has a 20 pence. So it shows you people are still losing coins. And then we've got a beautiful big Gothic florin, which has a date of 1935, which is George V yet again. There he is, looking to the left hand side. And another one, which is another George V. It's a little bit more worn though. I think we'll struggle to see a date on that one. But again, George V. And this one's George V as well. George V, by the grace of God, King of the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. And another 1 florin, and the date of 1922. So George V is quite common, as I say. He seems to be our most common monarch. My thinking behind that is probably it was a period when, around the First World War and after the First World War, food production in the UK, probably as a result of the war, probably rocketed, so more people were in the fields. This is a silver sixpence, 1933, with the oak leaves on the reverse. And this one here is almost certainly a love token. You see how it's been bent? And this is almost certainly a Gavilium or a Gavilimus, William III, a sixpence. So William III was also known as King Billy or King William of Orange, and he seized the throne in 1688 with his wife Mary when they forced Catholic James VII of Scotland, who was James II of England, King James, off of the throne because he was a Roman Catholic. And that's what kicked off the Jacobite uprisings. Jacobite coming from the word Jacobus, which is Latin for James. So they were supporters of the exiled James. And then we've got another threepence, which is Queen Victoria. She's got her old veil on, so this is her later in life. Might struggle to get a date on this one, but we'll see. 1901, so that's the year she died. So that's a threepence. And another threepence, better condition. And 1892, a threepence. And this is actually an old hammered coin. Shouldn't be in the box, but it is. And it is toasted, but look how thin it is. 100% that is a hammered silver coin. Probably going to be 700 or 800 years old. More than likely it's a silver penny, but as you can see, it has seen better days. And then we've got a half of a bobby. If I turn it that way, you can just see a thistle in the centre and the remainder of the lettering. Nemo me impune lacessit. So, who dare meddle with me? The motto of the Stuarts, and also the Order of the Thistle, which is Scotland's highest chivalric sort of medal, so to speak, still in place today. So that's a bobby, which was a sixpence, unfortunately broken, but still a nice old coin. And then lastly, this is a very worn coin, but it's from a rarer sort of king. This is 1834. I think it's a shilling. And on this side, you can see Georgius IV. So George IV famously came to Scotland in 1822. He came on a staged managed tour of the British Isles. He was the first monarch to come to Scotland since Charles II in 1651. So it was a huge event, and it was actually orchestrated by the world's greatest author at the time, Sir Walter Scott. Sir Walter Scott organised and orchestrated the entire event, and most famously of all, George IV paraded down the main street in Edinburgh wearing a kilt. And kilts had been pretty much outlawed in Scotland from the Jacobite period after Culloden, and he helped to restore the use of the kilt, which until then largely was limited to people who were in the armed forces, because in order to break the Highland culture and the clan system, they outlawed weapons, bagpipes, and the wearing of kilts and tartan plaid. Unfortunately for George IV, his kilt was more like a miniskirt, and people remarked that they saw a little bit too much of the king. As he walked down the main street, the crowd burst out in laughter because all the Scottish could see how stupid he looked. But old George IV had no idea. He thought they were loving it, so he lapped it up and cheered his way down the street, thinking that they were cheering him on when in actual fact we were all laughing at him. And then lastly, this here, which is not a coin. This is a silver ingot, one of two that I've found in the last year. and I can't find the other one yet, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be in that box somewhere. So this weighs probably about 20 grams, not far off an ounce, and it looks like it's been two pieces. It's either two pieces stuck together or it's one piece that's been longer, that's been folded over and bent over on itself, you know, like hinged. And who knows, this could be medieval, it could be Roman, it could be Viking, it could be any sort of age. I've had it tested and it's almost pure silver. I think it was about 98% silver. So quite what it was, whether it's a piece of hack silver or whether it's just a piece of sort of something that's been recycled, I'm not entirely sure, but it's a good find. Well, I realised that there is absolutely no chance whatsoever of me getting through this box of stuff. Sorry about the banging, that's my dog scratching himself upstairs, and hopefully the fan on top of the wood burner, which is making a little bit of a noise, isn't putting you off too much. But I think this is probably going to be like an 8-part series to go through this box, because I've not even scratched the surface. But that gives you an indication. Okay, there's a lot of junk in here, but this, as I say, is probably only 4, maybe 5 months worth of finds. My house is bursting at the seams, but there'll be some hidden gems in here which I'll definitely pull out. So I think I'll leave it there for the moment, but thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next video. Stay safe.